San Marino area, and he went to the University of Southern California, and he worked for Disney. And then he had a health situation which laid him up. And during this time, he began writing. And he's going to tell the story from there because it's really fascinating, and I hope you all enjoy Cliff Shiepe.
First of all, I'm glad my birthday's in January, because I would owe you $42. So I'm going to basically set up the story, read a passage, and talk about how the book came to be. Everyone asks me, did you always want to write a novel? And my answer is always no. I thought I'd write a TV pilot. That's what I was trying to accomplish. And I got very far with that. I got that to Showtime and to the USA Network. And Showtime wanted to sex it up, instantly, without any integrity. And USA thought, well, this would be a good movie of the week. Maybe you should think of it as a film. So I spent some time doing that, going back, and they stopped making movies of the week. And then I got to, can you hear me okay? Then I got to a producer who said, you know what, this concept is so strong, why don't you make it a film? Make a film, work backwards, and then it would be a TV pilot. I said, a film? So I went to the Writers Guild of America again, and I started reading scripts of books movies that I was interested in. And I wrote what I thought was a strong film. This was 6 years into the process. I got it to the president of a studio, Walden Media. And the first thing the president said to me was, we love it, but have you thought of it as a book? And I'm like, I am not writing a book. This has been 6 years of my life. And all the movies they were making at that time were based on novels. And so I said, I'll try 5 chapters. He said it'll take you 6 months to convert it. It took 4 more years. I'll tell more of the story after this passage. But the strategic decision I made is, I realized once the book was done, or getting close to being done, that I would be giving up all my rights if I went with them as the publisher. I'd be giving up my movie rights, TV rights. And so I said, what if I self-published? The book wouldn't even have to do well. I would just keep the rights, and then I'd make some money if it becomes a movie or a TV project. Well, the long and short of it is, the book took off. It's now the best-selling self-published book ever at Vroman's in Pasadena. I'm in 60 bookstores, independent bookstores, without a distributor. I'm my own publicist. I hire the editors. I hire the artists. So let me first say, the book is called Cliff Falls. I probably should have set that up first. And it's about a child star on the run. So many child stars are in the media. And the tagline is, what happens when you run into everything you've been running from? And this child star who's been on the run for 15 years, he started a fire when he was young. His past catches up with him. And that's where the story really takes off. So just in the interest of time, let me read one passage here. And I'll take some questions. Okay, in light of the foothills to the falls, is that what it is? I'm going to read something towards the end where he actually finds the falls. So he's hiding in this church, escaping his past. And the question I was interested in was less whether something exists in life and more how real is it? And there's this metaphor of the waterfalls. Are they really real, or are they just this bubbling brook? And that was much more of an interesting question to me. So this is where he stumbles onto the falls. It's a short passage. His name's Clay Grant. He was little guy Mike. Clay made his way up the rustic trail, the words repeating in his spirit. He noticed the magnificent oaks that lined his path. In the stillness, he listened for the quiet rustling of leaves as he continued along the trail. Soon he came upon the rushing falls the city was named for. 3 separate falls, emanating from one source. The sight was majestic. Light filtered through the golden oak leaves above the rushing waters. Standing on a rock, he could see his shadow on the opposite bank of the river. The roar of the water was plunging over the cliff, the outflow emptying into the river, cascading over the falls. Everything he was carrying was being swept away. The mighty roar was consuming him. The mighty roar was calling out his name. You are my beloved son, in whom I'm well pleased. The falls made everything come alive. He breathed in deeply. It was as if he was taking his first breath. By the time he made it back to town, something had changed. He had changed. The falls were flowing through him now. It was like he'd sunk deep beneath the water, gasping for air, but had come up the other side. It wasn't safe. It wasn't supposed to be. But he'd be all right, and he wouldn't be alone. He didn't know which had been more frightening, God or life. When he was underneath, he was alone. And it was scary, in a few moments, unbearable. But then he emerged, and he was all right, and somehow changed. The transformation that had eluded him, like all observers who stand on the banks, was finally there. Knowing who you are not, Clay realized, was always the beginning of change. But until you hear your true name, you will wander, and perhaps all should for a time. So the book came out in June, and it has been an exciting ride. And so much has happened. Books are word of mouth. They either take off or they don't. All the publicity in the world doesn't help unless someone says, you have to read this. As I said, it's selling out at bookstores. I'm in 22 bookstores in Northern California now, without a distributor. A college is making it required reading for incoming freshmen. The idea that there was some abuse in his life is very subtle in the story, but I've been receiving so many emails from people who have gone over the falls in their own lives. People with history of physical abuse, sexual abuse, substance abuse. I had no clue that was going to happen. So that's a testament to, you think you're doing something and it's going to reach certain people and it's going to be about this. And then you find out it's being used and received a whole other way. So there's so much to the story, and I know we have not too much time here. So I'm going to take some questions. We're doing okay?
You're good. You're good.
Okay, I'll take some questions, but because Mary alluded to it, 14 years ago when I was 26, prime of my life, I got sick. And they didn't know what I had, and I ended up in bed. And a lot like the main character, separated from everything that I had put my identity in. And all I could really do was write. And that was a 7-year process of finding out what was wrong and how to fix it. It was a bacteria, 70 doctors in 7 years. And they fasted the bacteria out of my system, 10.5 days. I just drank water. I was watching the Food Network like they were dirty movies. I'm like, but I was so desperate to be healed at that point. I was so desperate to be well. And then it was another 7 years of real restoration, of really getting my body healthy and my life back. And it was a little bit like that movie Castaway, if you've ever seen it. And the part that always just makes me cry is when he comes back. Not when he's on the island, when he comes back. And he tries to go back to his old life. And time has just moved on. And that was my experience. I'm healthy, and I'm re-emerging in life, and my friends are all married, kids, their houses, and time had just moved on. And what was wonderful about the book was it kind of forced me to re-enter life again and see what was there. Not what had been, what I thought life would have been, but what's here now. And while I wouldn't want to go through it again, I wouldn't go back. Life is very good, and just so grateful. So there's so much to tell, so many wonderful things have happened. I'm speaking many places, I'm having book signings, the turnouts have been great. It's selling out at all these independent bookstores. Child stars have gotten behind it. There's a child star, Paul Peterson, who's on Donna Reed. I got it to him, he read it in one night. I got an email from him at 3 in the morning. I'm doing a radio show with him tomorrow. Him and a lot of these child stars have gotten behind it. That was a challenge. How do you humanize a character that most people think is a train wreck? I mean, a reader doesn't identify with a child star who's kind of messed up. And so the challenge for me was creating a character that you would identify with and see yourself hopefully reflected in. So I want to take some questions, if anyone has questions.
What did you, now you got sick and you obviously